Hello again, it's Tony Wright, First Love Christian Church, or FLCC, and A.B. Wright Ministries. Here we are, 90-day Bible study. We're on day 10, finishing up in Leviticus from the 26th chapter, 27th verse through the end of the chapter, and into Numbers 8 chapter, 14th verse. Oh yeah, yesterday when we left off, God telling, the newly formed nation of Israel what the rewards are for obeying His commandments. Then I had to leave for a few, collect myself, so I could talk a little bit about what He told them afterward. Did you see that? Yeah, He did tell them that if they disobeyed Him, that they would experience 7 times more plagues or hard times. But the end of chapter 26 is what really got to me. When He told them, went on to tell them that even if they disobeyed and had to suffer punishment, that if they would confess their iniquity and the iniquity of their fathers, and acknowledge that they also walk contrary to God, what? Why in the world would God want these people, this chosen people, to concern themselves with confessing things about their forefathers? Well, as the King James Version would say, peradventure, perhaps, maybe, God is showing them not to place people on pedestals. You know how we tend to do, make our ancestors appear to be more than, hey, But look what God says about that. Because these ancestors had walked contrary to Him, He walked contrary to them. And now He has brought their descendants into the land of their enemies. Oh my goodness. Did you see this? That means the path to these people occupying their promised land could have been so much easier if they had listened, if their ancestors had listened. What I want to know is, have you ever been there? It's not that you didn't make it. You made it, but it took so much more effort, so much more time. But the point is, you made it. And why? Well, for the same reason that God gave to them. He said if they would humble their hearts and accept the punishment of their wrong, then God would remember the covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And He would remember the land that He had promised them. Now God told them that while they're in the land of their enemies, that He would not abandon them. And that He would remember the covenant He made with their ancestors, to bring them out of Egypt so that He could be their God. He said to them, I am the Lord. That's tough but tight. Now, if there wasn't a way to close out a book, right? Yeah, there were some additional instructions in there about, making vows to each other and to God. And there were some instructions on tithing. But to make it known that although Israel would have to traverse through enemy territory, that God would be with them, and He would keep His word about getting them to their promised land. Hoo-wee. Now, you might have to use your forward-thinking cap on this one, but can you see where this is going for us? How even though we may have to travel through enemy territory, that God has made us a promise, and He will not abandon us. Man, anyway, as we enter into this book of Numbers, this is the 4th book of the Pentateuch, God has tasked Moses with conducting a census. A census? Are you kidding me? Yeah, basically, from back during the times when the Israelites left from Egypt, they were doing censuses. This is not a new thing, is it? But God is going to take them through enemy territory, so they need an army. And God tells Moses to get a count of all the males 20 years old and older, and that the count is to be by family and according to the house of their fathers. I know you remember that Jacob had 12 sons. Leah had 6, and each of the other moms had 6. And those sons represents the houses of these tribes. And then the families are represented by the current patriarch. Now God told Moses that he was to take the leader of every family and then go conduct this count. Now, as you look through the list of names for heads of families, you might have noticed that Joseph's sons represent 2 families. Right? You remember Ephraim and Manasseh, the 2 sons of Joseph that Jacob had blessed before he died. And then Jacob told Joseph that those 2 sons were now his. And here they are in his list. And here each of them are represented by their family of descendants. Boy, some of this stuff is just too tight, isn't it? And one family represents Joseph here, and the other fills the void for Levi's family, because Levi's family is responsible for the tabernacle, remember. So they didn't take the census, but they finished the census, and the number of males that Moses counted, you know, he was going through, boy, 46,500, 45,650. Boy, by the time they got to the end, though, he had 603,550 men over 20. That was a complete count. Now, remember, the Levites were not included in this count, because God had assigned the Levites with responsibility to take down the tent, you know, pitch the tent and camp around it, protect it. Man, you see that? This tribe, Levi, would be responsible for every single thing relating to the tabernacle, all the contents in it, everything. Now, when I read how God set up the camp, or as we would have said in the military, set up the perimeter, you know, he specified which families would be on the east side of the camp, which would be on the south side, which would be on the west side, which would be on the north side, and which would be in the center. Of course, that would be the Levites. And God told Moses that he had taken all the firstborn of Israel for himself at the time he brought them from Egypt. But now that he was going to use the Levites in their place. But Moses was still to count all the firstborn of all of Israel, and he did, and the difference was about 273, right? But for every firstborn over the number of Levites, they had to be redeemed and bought back for 5 shekels each. And man, when you take a close look at the camp and that layout, boy, and the defensive perimeter, and don't forget the tabernacle, or what we would have called in military lingo the command center. Now, you know, with God dwelling in that tabernacle, that has to be the command center. I can't think of anywhere else on that whole site where the command center could possibly be. Are you kidding me, boy? And when you look at the number of troops that man each sector of that perimeter, whoo-wee. Look here, at the peak of Operation Iraqi Freedom, OIF, the manpower strength was like 175,000 soldiers, boots on ground, or troops that were actually in the battle space in Iraq. Max, 175,000. And here Moses had more than that number just covering the eastern sector. In all, more than 600,000 men over the age of 20, because they only counted those who were able to go to war. Are these dudes getting ready for battle or what? We got to get up out of here. Look, God then gives finer details of the duties and responsibilities of the Levites. Then he lays out a couple more laws. Did you see that law of jealousy? Man, if a dude suspected his wife of infidelity, then he presented an offering to the priest. Then the priest gave the lady an oath, and then the bitter water test. Did you see that? Now, if she was, lying about the affair, then when she drank the water, it turned bitter, her stomach would swell up, and her thigh would rot. What? Boy, somebody had better be telling the truth. Do you hear me? Oh my goodness. But did you also notice that there was no consequence to anyone if she was being truthful? It kind of seemed like to me the old hubby, might ought to take a little swig from the old water bottle, huh? I'm just saying. But then God laid out also the law of the Nazarite. Once you made a vow, you had to follow through. Until the time that the vow was fulfilled, there were just some things that you could not do. Now, this one might look a little familiar to you. You remember the story about Samson, don't you? Yeah, I think that violating this law of the Nazarite is the one that eventually took old Samson down, isn't it? Even today, though, there are things we just cannot do. But we have a difficult time with hard stops, don't we? Even at a stop sign, we want to do a little roll and stop. You know what I'm saying? We just have to test things. That's just how we do. But it seems like sooner or later, that we would learn that when God sets a standard, that's it. And as they say, full stop, period. I'm just saying, listen, we got, so anyway, after God has the tribes assigned to their sectors, he gave Moses a blessing that Moses was to bestow on the people of Israel. God said, tell them, the Lord bless thee and keep thee. The Lord make his face shine upon thee and be gracious unto thee. The Lord lift up his countenance upon thee and give thee peace. Boy, is that a blessing or what? Then after the Levites, after they set up the tabernacle, put that tabernacle in place, it was time to start bringing in the offerings. You know, the offerings that God had set forth. So one tribe would come forth with their offering each day for 12 straight days. Now, when you look at that list of things for the offering for each tribe, did you see the amount of gold and silver and the amount of incense and oil? And oh my goodness, the animals for the offerings? What? There were a total of 12 bullocks, 12 rams, 12 lambs, 12 goats, just for the burnt offerings. And then there was another 24 bullocks, 60 rams, 60 lambs, 60 goats, just for the peace offering. Man, are you kidding me? Wait a minute, hold up. Now, these tribes are the same people who were held in bondage in Egypt just a little bit ago. Remember when God told them to ask of their masters for all things they may have need of? Boy, by the time God had finished putting the smack down on these Egyptians, they were ready to give up anything that it took. I mean, anything. They just wanted these Hebrews to leave. You hear me? And these Hebrews left with an abundance, didn't they? So now it was time for Aaron to get busy, you know, with the operational task for the tabernacle. So after God commanded it, Aaron began lighting lamps for the candlesticks. And then it came time to start the process of cleansing those Levites, all those that would be under Aaron's charge. And that was a job by itself. Because imagine, there were more than 22,000 people with responsibility just for operating the tabernacle and moving that tabernacle around as the ground forces move. Boy, looks like this show was about to go on the road. Look here, speaking of being on the road, we're getting up out of here for the day. Next day's reading is coming out of Numbers, 8th chapter 15th verse through the 21st chapter 7th verse. But you keep reading and you keep checking us out on your favorite social media platform. And like always, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, FLCC, we're taking ministry back to the first love. Peace.